In our first lesson about file types that are used in Office 365, we looked at the default file types. In this lesson, we're going to look at other non-default file types that are used by the Office 365 applications. So just to review, the default file types that are used by Office 365 today are, here with Microsoft Word, we use .docx. For Excel, it is XLSX. PowerPoint uses .pptx. Outlook doesn't use anything that's like the other more popular applications, and Access uses its own file type that does not have an X in it anywhere, and it's just .accdb. It stands for ACC would be Access and DB for database. So an Access database file would just contain ACCDB. So if you're creating a file today, you're probably going to save these files in something that ends with an X in Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Now, back in the old days of computing with Microsoft Office, we used a file extension that did not end with an X. Notice it says that for a file that could be used by somebody using an older version of Word all the way back to 1997, all the way up through 2003, then you would just use a file extension of .doc. And for Excel, you would just use a file extension with .xls. Notice there's no final X on any of these older versions of these Office applications. So PowerPoint uses .ppt. So in all of the drop-downs, you're going to find a file type for an older version of that program. Now, that's not true for Outlook. That's a whole different case. But even for Access Database, there are older file types. So today, the modern version is .accdb, but the older version of Access would be .mdb. That's mentioned here twice, both here right under the ACCDB, and then also beside it, you're going to find a .mdb extension for the older versions of Microsoft Access. Now, there are some other common file types that are used by Office 365. We sometimes refer to these as cross-platform file types, and that's not true across the board in every single case, but generally the file types that you see here can be used by any operating system like Windows or Mac or Linux. The first three of these that are listed here in this table are all files that are presenting just text. If you open the document, you're going to see just text contained in that document. I'll give you an example here of one of these. Here is a file. This is a CSV file. It contains data that could be opened directly into any text editor, or it could be opened into Word. But very often CSV files are just opened as data in Microsoft Excel. But you can see that you can read all of the words here. And so this is what we call a text file. If you can open it and read what it says, and it's not just gibberish to you, then it's just a text file. You'll see here that there is no formatting in the sense that none of this text that is shown here has any kind of bold text or maybe some text with color like red font or italics. None of this text has any kind of formatting at all. It's just plain text. So a text file that contains just like maybe a list of names, if you wanted to have the names of all of your family members, or if you wanted to have a file that contained the months of the year, then that would just be plain old TXT file. .txt stands for a text file that has no formatting whatsoever. But there is a type of text file that has some formatting in it. We call that rich text format. Now I'm going to open the folder that you saw in the first lesson, and these are some just different file types, and you may recall that I created this one document called random text.docx. I'll open the file, And you'll see the file the way that I created it. Just random text with maybe a title, and the title up here has a heading of 1, and so it's blue, it's all cap, larger font than what you see down here. That's the Microsoft Word format. This would be a .docx file. Now if I'll go back to that list of file types that I'm working with, I created a file type of this in just plain old TXT, so it would open in a file text editor. So I'll open this with Notepad, and here is that same file with no formatting. I'll put it off to one side, move this up to where I can see them both. You'll see the heading is all caps, large font in blue, but down here in the text file there is no formatting other than the fact that it's got all capital letters. And then the paragraphs, there's no space between the paragraphs, there's no indentation, there's nothing, just plain text file. Close that, and then I have this same file in something called rich text format, so I'll double click this to open it up, and this file will open in what's called WordPad. WordPad is a free text editor that's on your Microsoft Windows computers. So it looks a lot like Microsoft Word, but it's not Word. It doesn't contain nearly as many features up here on the ribbon. You can compare this to Microsoft Word, and you can see that the ribbon doesn't have hardly any of the tabs across the top of the ribbon that you would see in Word. But if I compare this file to what you see in the Microsoft Word document, you can see that it has the large blue text file. It's got paragraphs that are formatted into something that looks like paragraphs. But this is a plain text file, but it does retain some of its formatting. And that can be used by Windows computers. It can be used by Mac computers. So text files and rich text files can all be used by Windows or Mac or Linux or any kind of a computer that's commonly used today. Now that third type of file that I showed you a moment ago is the comma separated file, and this is the one where that you have just common data. Everything in it is separated by commas. The top row up here would represent the column headings in an Excel spreadsheet, and each one is separated by a comma. And then on the second row here, this would be all the data that would appear in row 1 of a spreadsheet, and right below that would be all of the data found on row 2 of the spreadsheet. And notice that these are all separated by a comma. So this is a plain text file. CSV is a plain text file, and it's commonly used for data files, but all of the values are comma separated, and so that's why we have CSV, stands for comma separated values. RTF, rich text values, and TXT is just plain old text. Now there's another kind of format that is used widely across every kind of computer platform, and that's called PDF, and these are associated with the Adobe programs like Adobe Acrobat Reader. We call the PDF stands for portable document format, and the reason they call it portable is it can be used on any kind of a computer. Microsoft has a version that is similar to PDF. It's a portable document, and they refer to it as XPS. And sometimes in Geometrics or some other applications where they're trying to teach you how to use the Microsoft Office documents, you may be told to print a file as PDF or XPS, or you may be told to view a file as PDF or XPS. And these are two different file types, but they both have the same purpose of being portable across different computing platforms. And of course, you can use image files and audio files and video files in any of the Office applications. But it may not use just everything. There may be some products that are some like video file type or an audio file type that's used in a Mac or an Apple computer that you cannot use in a Windows computer. There may be some of those, but what I say here in my notes is that the most popular image files can be used across the different types of computer. The most popular audio files and the most popular video file formats can be used in the Office applications.